Hey, Stephen Placey here with another edition of the Rock Your Business podcast. I have an amazing guest on here today. His name is Doug Collins. Doug, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
And Doug is a home-based business strategist, and he really focuses on, and what we're talking about today are some tax tips for home-based business owners. So Doug, you're located, well, first off, you're located in Canada. What's it like up in Canada today?
It's getting a little cold up in this area. Yeah.
As you listeners know, it's Florida and it's freezing here today. We just had a cold front come through this morning. It's only going to be like 78 today. So we do have people wearing jackets. So, we might have to put socks on with our flip-flops. So Doug, you work a lot with home-based business owners, and that's people that are maybe in some multi-level marketing things. That's people that are just running it could be CPAs. It could be anybody that's running their business out of their home, correct?
Yep.
Excellent. And you have written a book. Tell us about your book, and then we'll get into some pieces out of that book that can really give you some great advice on how to save some money on your taxes from running your home-based business.
Sure. Yeah. So I wrote a book, and it kind of all started during the pandemic when we all went on lockdown. I guess I had a choice. I could scroll Facebook and social media and see what's going on in the world, or sit down and watch Netflix and drink beer, or I started writing, and I started, putting on paper everything I've learned over the last 20 plus years around home business and taxes. And I ended up self-publishing a book called The Home-Based Business Guide to Write Off Almost Anything, which has kind of been my mantra for, the last decade. Is, as a home-based entrepreneur in whatever kind of business, we just have so many tax advantages that most people either don't understand or they're just getting bad advice about. And, and that could be, I work with a lot of people who work full-time and just have this side hustle, side gig at home. Again, like you said, it could be network marketing. It could be anything, podcasters. It could be, they could be doing anything on the side. You make a little income, or just as an interest type hobby. It's raising that to have them look at it as a business and start claiming all the home-based write-offs. Now, I'm in Canada, but I work with people across North America. My book is not a how-to file taxes. It's more of just, here's all the write-offs. And really the tax system between Canada and the US, the IRS and the CRA, for home-based business taxes, it's really kind of the same. We just use different language. The forms are different than the numbers are different, those types of things. But at a high level, the write-offs, the different categories, it's all really the same. And when people get their heads around this, it literally can save them thousands and thousands of dollars they're missing on their
Okay,
income tax.
so now that we have everybody's attention, that we can save thousands and thousands of dollars, because not everybody, I don't know anybody, maybe there's some sick people out there that really like writing bigger checks than they need to, maybe there are, but that's not me. And I'm sure that's most everybody else in there. It's that old game. Can we pay as least amount of taxes as we possibly can, but we still have to make sure we're showing enough income, right? Like, that's the game. So do you want to talk about that real quick? Can we talk about showing if you want to go buy a house, you want to go buy this, you can't show $10,000 worth of income because you wrote everything off.
So, there's one thing about, going to buy the house, it's what the bank wants, but it's another thing as far as, writing it off. It's not necessarily from the IRS, let's say the IRS or CRA, Revenue Canada. It's not necessarily whether you made money or not. It's what intention did you have to make money. So, a lot of companies in this pandemic in 2020 aren't going to make money. Does that mean they don't have to file their taxes this year?
Yeah,
we wish. Get a free pass?
Yeah, we wish. That would be fantastic.
Right?
But
so whether they owe or not, they still have to file something. If you have no income, a lot of people still have to file their income tax. So it's having that record keeping. It's showing that intention. Here's what I did to try to make money, whether you made money or not. It's having that documentation, that process, everything you've done to make money. So, and if you work full time, like if you looked at a situation where, let's say, I've recently been working with, for some reason, a lot of teachers, and they're involved in side businesses, travel agencies, network marketing, makeup, and all this kind of stuff. and so they're making, say, as a teacher, $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Their employer is probably withdrawing $15,000, $18,000 in income tax at source off their pay. And they have a side business, but they're really not making a lot of money. Once they start bringing in all those tax write-offs, they're looking at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in tax refunds from the government from their full-time income. That's money that was withdrawn off every pay. So in a full year, maybe it's $15,000, $18,000. They could get 5 or 6 of that back as a tax refund and all they're really doing is now leveraging their current living expenses, mortgage interest, heat, phone, internet, things that they're already spending anyways, whether they claim it or not, they still have to pay that on a monthly basis out of their net after-tax income.
Okay. I think we could spend another 5 hours on this because this is awesome, because there's a lot of questions. And so I think people, maybe they try to go and do their taxes themselves, or maybe they hire someone. I know I've seen at Walmart, they have a, Jackson Hewitt or whatever person inside Walmart or whatever, that they're just kind of entering stuff and then that's it. They're maybe not taking advantage of all the things they should be doing. And that's what we're talking about here. So talk about that. We talked about that before we jumped on this podcast. I am not bashing CPAs. There's a lot of wonderful people out there that do tax preparation and stuff like this, but that's not all exactly. We shouldn't be waiting to the end of the year and waiting for our CPA to do the right things for us, right?
Yeah, and it's in my book, I have a chapter in there called, your tax preparer is giving you bad advice. And I've seen this over and over and over again. Tax preparers or accountants, CPAs, they're typically very conservative. I also in that chapter, I talk about if you want to outsource your taxes, here's what you should look for. So, is the tax preparer in a home-based business? Have they ever done a home-based business? Do they understand your type of business? I've seen a lot of tax preparers discourage their clients. Say they're in a network marketing business and they do it part-time or whatever. They're not making a lot of income. That's not really a business. Don't claim it on your taxes. So that they're giving bad advice.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the other thing is we as home entrepreneurs or home business owners, we kind of just put everything in a file or somewhat sorted. And then we take this bag or box of receipts to our tax person at tax time. It's already too late. Right. It's the analogy of I want to run a marathon in March or a tax season, and I just show up then with my shorts on. Like I didn't do any training, I didn't do any prep work all year long to prepare me for that run. So there's so much we can do during the year, and if we're not putting that tax planning, that mindset hat on, we're gonna miss it, and you can't recover it. It's too late if you wait till tax season.
So it's like you said, it's really more about tax planning now. And I have a gentleman that does outsourced CFO work for businesses that are doing $1 million and up, and maybe our listeners, home-based businesses might not be there, but I will tell you this, there's a lot of people making a lot of money at a home-based business. Okay. So we're not just talking MLMs. We're talking, again, if you're running your business if you are running a business and you don't have an office you go to, that's outside your home. That's basically it, right? It could be online, it could be in person, it could be whatever you're doing. So, it's about tax planning. And that's, again, a big term that I think people only think that's only for, bigger businesses, bigger than me, but that's what you need to be doing. So I want to talk about some of the things you need to be doing 365 days a year that can have huge effects on the end of the year tax bill or your tax bill for next year. Can you give us a couple nuggets of things you should be doing?
Yeah, I guess two of the big ones would be one is your vehicle. This has been a weird year for all of us, so we're all not driving around in our cars as much as we used to. But it's when you do get in your car, how do I make wherever I'm going? How do I make this a business trip? How do I do some activity that would advance my business, right, in some way to now make this mileage business mileage, right? Which allows you then to claim, a proportion of your gas and your maintenance and all this. all this kind of stuff. You know, the other part of it is that I see a lot missing is the home office, the business use of home. You know, there's one person that I work with last year. Her and her husband own 4 or 5 properties here in the city. They rent them out like condos, townhouses. And they claim, you know, if they hired a plumber to come and fix a toilet, that's an expense, right? So they would claim sort of the obvious operating type stuff. You know, I asked her, we were talking on the phone one day, and I asked her, like, so where do you write the check to pay the plumber, or do the e-transfer on where does your laptop sit? Well, I do that, you know, here. And I was like, that's the wrong answer, right? Like, you know, I brought her back to the office that they have, and the square footage and what that represents in their home, and help them work out. And they weren't claiming any of that because they didn't see it. You know, it's just my laptop. I'm sitting there in the couch. And I said, no, you need to be using your office as your primary place of business. You're a landlord. You're a property management company, right? So, and it's like, okay. So I helped her figure out the square footage and, you know, the mortgage interest and the heat and the internet. And I said, like, you know, so if a tenant has a problem, what number do they call? Well, they call my cell phone. And I said, are you claiming your cell phone as a business expense? No. So we sat down and we worked it out. And what she did, this was last year. So what she did was she was actually preparing to do her taxes. So she filed her taxes for 2018. That was 2018, so last year. She filed her taxes as a home business, and then she refiled an amendment for the previous 2 years. Based on this new information, she got $10,000 in tax refunds.
Holy cow.
Over those 3 years. Last year, for 2019, she did it. I think she figured she probably was worth another $3,000. So in 1 year, I helped her capture $13,000 in tax refunds just by now including her home office as a tax write-off.
Wow. That's huge. I mean, think about what you could do. Let's say someone just wrote you a $10,000 check back to you. What could you do with that?
Well, in the book, I got a chapter on that. So what I would recommend is take that $10,000 and invest it, and get a tax receipt, because now it's invested, and use that this year as a tax deduction, right? Which then increases your write-off even more. If you start pounding that money away as an investment, where would you be 3, 5, 10 years from now if every year you just kept putting money and it kept compounding and growing?
Now, see, these are the games that the big boys play, right? When you hear people, oh, this guy that's worth billions of dollars only paid this much in taxes, well, that's why. You know, there's reasons for that. There's not, you know, these big companies, they're not dodging taxes. They pay taxes. They pay millions of dollars of taxes. They just might not pay as much income taxes. They're paying property taxes, sales taxes, all these billions of dollars in taxes. But they're not paying as much income tax because of the things like he's talking about. It's the same process. It's just with more commas and more zeros, right? Like it's the same principles, right?
And you know, as a home business owner, you know, we get in our car and we put gas in our car. We pay tax on the fuel, right? We have an oil change. We pay tax on the oil change. Like, we're paying tax all along. What we want to be doing is taking some or all of those expenses and making them a tax write-off to reduce our taxable income. So the more tax receipts we have, tax write-offs we have, we're spending money as far as sales tax goes. We want to be reducing our income tax, like you said. And in most home-based business owners that I work with, easily save them $2,000-$3,000 a year.
Wow.
They're missing.
So that's a huge thing. So go at least invest in this book. You know, so let's go ahead and give that website now. If they just want to stop now and say, okay, I need to go buy the book, where can they go do that?
Yeah, they can find me at dougcollinsonline.com, COLLINS online.com. And they can find the book there and order it, and you'll have it within a week, 3 or 4 days. It's pretty quick. So
cool. And then you also have, and I'm just going to take a pause in case you've heard enough. We're going to go into some more stuff in case you've already heard enough. And we're not trying to sell you stuff. Look, he just said he could maybe save you $2,000-$3,000. I'm going to go buy this stuff. Okay. And you also have a course that helps people with this as well, right?
Yeah. So I created the course a couple of years ago, and it was really out of, you know, speaking with home business owners over the last decade or so. it's, I was always repeating the same thing over and over again. And it was just like, what can I do? And I started learning about sort of the knowledge, core online course trend and stuff. And I thought, you know what, I should just package it into a course. And when I'm talking to people, just say, you know what, just take the course. If you need more help, let me know, you know what I mean? So, and I put it together, and we've got great stories. It's been very impactful for a lot of those folks who really embraced it. So, it's 9 video modules. It's pretty easy. It's like my book, my writing style. It's almost like what we're having this conversation here now. So it's not technical. Anybody can take this. I've developed my own record keeping system using Excel files, profit and loss, all that kind of stuff. I've included everything that I'm doing. I included it in the course. You can have it all. And it's everything. It's the foundation of everything you need to get this thing tightened down. And it's a 10x return on your investment for sure.
That's awesome. Okay. So you can go check that out. So where would they find out information? Is still on your website, Doug Collins Online?
Yeah, they can go to, probably the easiest way to find it is homebusinesstaxsecrets.com.
Oh, okay.
So homebusinesstaxsecrets.com. I kind of branded it around the tax secrets because I just felt like it was a secret and nobody knew and nobody's telling anybody. Like, nobody's sharing this kind of information. So, and, it's not really a secret, but it seems to be, right? So.
Right, because no one's using it. And the IRS or the CRA are not coming to your door and saying, hey, you know what? You should have taken this deduction. So that's just not happening. So, all right. So let's keep going on. So go check out that book. Check out that course. Like you said, even if you do one or the other, all of it, 10 times results. He just said he could probably save you $2,000 to $3,000 right there. Fantastic. It's worth the investment, right? So let's keep going on with some more tips, because I'm all about just giving as much nuggets as we possibly can. And you mentioned back a few minutes ago about the vehicle thing. And I want to put that in perspective. If you make donuts at your house and you go to deliver the donuts, if you're a Mary Kay rep and you're delivering products to people at their houses or businesses, whatever, you're using a vehicle to deliver whatever you do. Okay. Or if you're going on appointments and using your vehicle, how do they best take advantage of that, of the tax advantages? How do they do that? What kind of records do they need to keep? Things like that.
Sure. Yeah. So inside my course, I have a module on the vehicle, and it's really what I've been doing. And I find my system works pretty simple. And, a lot of people would suggest going to the, Staples and buying the little log books that you write out. And nobody ever uses those. They sit in your glove box for the year and turn yellow, whatever.
You forget this time, that time, and then it becomes every time.
Right?
Yes.
So what I've done and what I've taught people to do is use their calendar, whether it's on their phone or, like a Google Calendar where it's synced between your phone and your computer or whatever. And, put every appointment in it. Like run your life, run your business by your calendar. Like my kids grew up knowing that if their appointments, whether it was hockey or whatever they were doing, if their appointments were not in my calendar, dad's not showing up.
That's right.
And it's the same thing with your business, right? If you don't have it in your calendar, how are you going to show up to that meeting? Right. So, and that's the intention of taking your business serious, right? Like how do you do it? So what I teach people to do, a simplified method, is just use your calendar. So, if I'm going to Starbucks and I'm meeting Steven at Starbucks on a Friday afternoon, it's in my calendar. It's Starbucks at this location. So at the end of the year, I just download all my calendar activity, sort it out by what's business. And then I know that from my home to the Starbucks and back might be 5 miles, right? So I put that in. I know what my starting mileage is for the year, and I know what the ending is. And then I see what my total drive mileage, my business mileage is, and I know what that percentage is. And then I get to write off that percentage of all my vehicle expenses for the year. So every time you get in your vehicle, every time I get in my vehicle, I'm sitting there going, how do I make this a business trip? Right? If I'm going to go to Costco, what am I going to buy at Costco? I need paper from my office. So I'm going to grab some paper. Now it's a business trip.
Yeah.
Right.
Love it.
And I can write my Costco membership off because I need my Costco membership in order to buy office supplies.
Right. Right. So there's a delicate balance here. Now and I love everything you're saying. There's also a delicate balance because that does not mean it's open season to write off everything off your taxes out of your business. You going to lunch with your friend and you say, hey, and she asks you about your business does not become a business expense, right? I mean, we have to
Yeah,
be very careful with that as well.
exactly. And, and when people talk about the red flags, vehicle expenses is one, and your meals and entertainment's expenses. So if you're generating little revenue, but you've got, 80% of your mileage is business,
Yeah,
and
right.
you've got thousands of dollars per month of meals,
Right.
drinking with your buddies and stuff, like those things are red flags. The government knows that you're flogging this thing, right? So it's got to be reasonable. It's got to be, it's almost like saying my home office represents 80% of my house. Well, they know you have to live there, right? So,
Right.
it's just having the right balance of having that intention to make a profit, right? But also keeping again, we can't overspend in our business. You got to create a return on that investment. So, it's a great point that, it's not open season at all.
It is. Yeah, it's hey, we've all said that. Hey, my buddy asked me about this. I want to write this one off. Well, maybe you do that this time, but not the next 10 times as well. So going to play darts and they ask you about your business while you're chugging down, 10 beers is not a business expense. So
the question is, would you follow up with your buddy if he asked you that question? So, probably not, because it was a passing conversation. Then
right.
It's probably not a legit expense then, right? If there's a next step, a follow-up, something like that, like a legitimate business activity that comes out of that, then possibly, right? So then
yeah, so just be discretionary. Just use your big beautiful brain and say, okay, let's because it's great. Again, we want to write off as much as we can, but we also don't want to be audited.
Yeah.
So we don't want to do that. So, and then you also want to be able to show income. You can't bring in, $50,000 a year in income and write off $40,000 of it and show $10,000 worth of income, because that's not good. First off, big red flag. Second off, you need to be able to show income as well. So it's a balance. And Doug goes into all that stuff in his book. Teach you his course. If it's right for you, then grab it. Because if it can save you $2,000-$3,000 not only this year, but every year, then shoot, the book's what? How much is the book?
Yeah, for $14 US.
Right.
And my goal working with home entrepreneurs is to change their tax-paying future forever, right? So
love it.
That's compounded every year, right? So,
right. Even if it happened just one time, I'd give you, Doug, I will send you a check for $300 right now if you pay me back one for $3,000. And please, let's do that every minute of every day, please. So, all right. So, Doug, I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for all this great information. And just in case they wanted to find out more again about you, the book, the course, things like this, where would they go to do those things?
Yeah, they can find me at dougcollinsonline.com.
So, and then the websites one more time.
dougcollinsonline.com.
Perfect.
And you can find the course at homebusinesstaxsecrets.com.
Perfect. Thank you, my friend. My new friend. I love it.
Yeah.
I love meeting people that have great advice like this, that, this is stuff you can go start doing today. Okay. Even today, we're recording this on October 30th, 2020. You can start logging that mileage today and still get some tax savings. You can start doing the things he's talking about today because you still have time. And then you're ready to go for January and start doing it every day after that. So go grab that stuff. Thank you, Doug, for your time. Listen, everybody, thank you again for listening to the podcast. I just can't appreciate every single one of you. You listening right there, thank you. Thank you for listening. And, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead, hit that subscribe button. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google. You can find us everywhere. I really appreciate you, and go rock your business. We'll see you soon.